Welcome to today's episode of the Declutter Hub podcast, your channel for super easy, no-nonsense advice on how to declutter and organise your home. Please welcome your hosts, professional organisers Ingrid Jansen and Leslie Spellman.
Hello and welcome listeners to episode 111 of the Declutter Hub podcast. I'm Ingrid.
And I'm Leslie.
If you have clutter and want to sort it out, this is the show for you. Now, in today's episode, Leslie and I are talking about what decluttering tasks you can do that have a big impact. Especially when you start out with decluttering, it's great to see space appear in your home so you can get that positive boost and motivation to go on to your next project. So Leslie and I have been brainstorming and thinking, and we've identified 7 categories of stuff that are quite big and bulky and will create lots of space in your home.
Yes, and the interesting thing about this podcast is, as you say, Ingrid, it's all about creating space. And so we're looking for big, bulky items. So if ever I go and work with someone at their home, I'm definitely looking for big things that really visually make that difference in terms of the space that you've got. And there were some really obvious ones and some that are not quite so obvious.
Well, and you know what, Leslie? A lot of people who start out decluttering start to ponder about the tiniest little items. And it's like, let's look at some of the big stuff first, because if you start to see that space, if you see those bin bags full of stuff leave your house, if you fill up that car boot to bring it either to the tip, the recycling, the charity shop, your friend, it doesn't really matter. But if you see lots of stuff leaving, it just really motivates to think, that was fantastic. What a great job that you. I've given myself a big pat on the back. I'm ready to move to the next level. And instead of, if you kind of see this tiniest of tiniest little bags leave your house, you're like, wow, I just spent 4 hours for the tiniest little bag. This is not good. This is going to take forever to do my house. And if you see lots of big stuff, it's like, yes, this is amazing.
So I think what we need to remember is this is a specific strategy. That's a bit of a tongue twister, and I've edited out 5 versions of that already, by the way. Listeners, specific strategy designed to create space. Now, we're not suggesting this is the best way to declutter your house, but this is what we would call in our membership a quick win. And so we are going to look at this and we're going to say, right, okay, I want to create some space in my house. I want to motivate myself on what can we do to make a difference. Ingrid, what is number 1 on your list?
Well, I'm already laughing now, Leslie, because we have put down 7 things. And now I want to start with number 6. Because I think suitcases is actually a really good place to start, because we know people have tons of them. And I'm also kind of including little backpacks and travel cases and big and bulky but suitcases are like incredible. I mean, rooms full of them. They're on top of cupboards. They're in cupboards. They're in lofts. They're in basements. They go over in the garage. They're everywhere. But when they actually need something, they can't find it. So they're really big and bulky. So can we start with suitcases then?
We can start with suitcases. And I think you've said everything, really, is they're big and bulky. And there are only certain ones in our house that we use all the time. Now, if you're a big traveler and you do lots of different types of trips, so you might do business trips, you might do a trip on your own for leisure, you might do a trip with your family. Sometimes you use different types of suitcases for different things. But in general, people have one medium-sized suitcase, because we can't even take a large, what we would consider to be a large suitcase, on a plane anymore. And in the UK, to be fair, whenever we go anywhere, normally, let's say normally, not in COVID times, we have to go on a plane somewhere. And so we're restricted to the amount of weight that you can take on a plane. So therefore, a medium-sized suitcase tends to be the one that we go for more often than not. And then you would have a smaller, kind of almost like a plane, what do they call it? Like a plane size what
Yeah,
do they
like
call those?
hand luggage size.
Yeah, like a handheld or, like a carry-on luggage, that kind of size. But for a lot of people, that's the only luggage that you actually need. But people have got tons and tons and tons, especially large, heavy suitcases from years gone by.
Exactly, Leslie, because the luggage industry has changed so much. The materials that they use to make the suitcases is now all like massive, like high-tech fiber stuff and other materials. They used to be like this massive like leather and straps and no wheels, and now you've got these super nifty massive suitcases, or even the tiny suitcases that have 4 wheels. You can they're super lightweight, because you don't want the suitcase to already weigh anywhere between 3 and 6 kilos before you've even have put stuff in it, because a lot of the airlines now are really hot on the kilos you can bring. So you want to really maximize the stuff you can take and have the suitcase as light as possible. So they have now got super lightweight suitcases available. So we kind of upgrade over the years to kind of the newest available, because we're almost being forced by the airlines to really keep an eye on that weight that you can bring on a plane.
Yeah, of course. And the problem with the suitcase is that those suitcases that we had 20 years ago still look amazing, could still come in for certain purposes, maybe if you're moving house or something like that. So there's definitely that, but it might come in one day. They still look good. They don't need to look perfect anyway, because they're a little bit battered and bruised anyway from the traveling. And so people really tend to keep hold of them. People tend to use them in lofts to store things as well if they run out of space. But ultimately, these are big, bulky items, and you can really create a lot of space by reevaluating the suitcases that you keep.
Yeah, and I think it's also when you do have a larger family with children and older children, and they all start to go traveling themselves, and they go away to camping weekends, and they go away with the scouting. You need other kinds of luggage as well, and you kind of go for the soft without the hard cases, and then you go into maybe backpack kind of type travel equipment. And before you know it, with a family of 4, you're looking at 30 different types of luggage. And where you're thinking, where did all this stuff come from? So I think it's a great opener for this podcast, Leslie, is to go think about suitcases. So what would be your next one then?
My next one would actually be number 2 on our list. And no one else can see the list that we've got in front of us, but we completely did not put them in the right order.
No.
So we're just going to have to do it off the cuff as we go through. So number 2 is our favorite. We have talked about this many, many times before, haven't we? And I thought when you said you were going to go for number 6, I thought, I'm going to go for number 2 if she comes to me first. So this would be my number 1. You have your number 1, which was number 6, and I'm going to have my number 1, which is number 2, which is appliance boxes.
I have one in my garage. Can I admit this at the moment?
Well, you can have that. No, but the bottom line is you do need to keep appliance boxes for a little while if you think there's going to be a problem with them. But I think one of the things that I've said before is I spoke to John Lewis, which is a big department store here in the UK. Things like TVs and Hoovers and those kind of things. The expectation is that you will have the original packaging for 6 weeks. And after that, there's no expectation whatsoever that you would have the original packaging to return it in. And so really think that through with appliance boxes, because if you and I know this already, Ingrid, if you and I are doing a garage or a loft or a spare bedroom or a dumping ground room, the first things on our radar are appliance boxes, because we can get into those boxes, we can break them down, we can get them out of the house, and all of a sudden the space is freed up immediately. So please, 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 if you are compromised for space, look at appliance boxes. There is no need to keep appliance boxes. Yes, there are some instances where something may be worth more money if you decide to sell it in 10 years' time with the original packaging. But that's where you have to find this compromise and this balance, which is what's more important for me, the appliance box or the space? If I can get an extra £10 for this in 10 years' time when I sell it, is that worth keeping the box for 10 years or would I rather lose the £10? Yeah, that's a very simplistic way of looking at it, but you have to balance that up all the time. An appliance box is something that people religiously keep and take up huge amounts of space in lofts and garages, which means that the rest of the space is unmanageable and difficult to zone.
And it's so funny, Leslie, because I hear all the time, but I'm keeping the box for when I move house. So then, of course, my first question is, oh, when are you moving? Oh, no. I'm not moving house. I'm like, but you've just said you're keeping it because you're moving house. Yeah, but in the future, for when I ever move house, I'm like, but have you got any plans already to move house? No, I love it here when I live. I'm like, okay, so you're keeping a box because you might move house in 20 years' time. Well, this TV is probably already been replaced by 3 or 4 other versions because we upgrade them and the technology changes so fast with especially TVs and monitors and things like that.
And you've really got to think that through, because if you use a removal company, your insurance probably won't be valid if you've packed it into the box yourself. They will only insure something if they are the ones that have packed it in their way. So really think that through. So I've got a situation at the moment, and I've got a client who I am managing a house move from the UK over to the States. And she's got one sculpture, which she's had for years, which is very kind of an awkward shape, if you will. It's got its original packaging with all the foam that's completely molded. Completely get that. So that will go into its original packaging and it will then get packed, and it will go into another box then with the removal company and get packed again. So that's a very specific circumstance, but not a kettle box or a camera box or a TV box or a monitor box or a printer box or all those kind of things that are huge and just take up huge amounts of space, don't they, Ingrid?
Yeah, couldn't agree more, Leslie. I know appliance boxes regularly come back because we see it all the time. And that's why we chat about it on the podcast. So let's then move on to the next one. I think we should talk about coats now, because I was doing a wardrobe declutter the other day with a lovely client of mine, and she said, I want to sort out my hallway and I want to swap coats, and I want to look at winter and summer coats. She said, get the summer coats in the wash and the winter coats out and all of that. And before we knew it, and she's got 3 children, husband and herself, so 5 people in the house, we had a mountain of coats. It's like, it's incredible. Where do they all come from? Of course, because they've got outdoor coats and coats to do the school run and a coat to walk the dog and then rain gear and for when it gets really cold and then a dressy coat for when they go out. It was incredible, the amount of coats. And I think a lot of people have a lot of coats.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that, and some people are and love a lot of coats as well, which is absolutely fine.
Mm.
But the one thing that I would say, if you're doing a declutter like you did with your client the other day, you can create a lot of space. And that space quite often is taken up on coat racks at the front door, in the hallway, behind understairs cupboards, wherever we've got hooks for coats. And they hide, don't they? The little coats hide, especially like little kids' coats. They hide at the bottom. And all of a sudden you've got a coat there from a 3-year-old when your youngest is 9, and it's just been there for donkey's years, hiding behind things. And so rather than go through things on the hooks, because you only tend to get to the ones that are at the front, do as Ingrid did the other day with her client, take everything off, gather all the coats from all around the house, get the people involved, and make sure that you only have coats that are fit for purpose and that are currently in use.
Very, very true. And it's especially when you start doing the coats that are kind of not in use all the time, like the rain gear. You know, before you know it, there's another year gone. And especially when they're the under 10s, they grow so quickly out of their clothing. It's absolutely amazing. So they do find their way into cupboards, and only by gathering it all together. And in my client's house, she's got 2 different coat racks, one for at the back door and one at the front door. So then it's even more important to actually, and I've now trained her well, because I said, come on. She's like, would you like me to gather all the coats together? I'm like, yes, I'm rubbing off on you. We need to gather it all together and actually look at the sizing. And of course, sometimes coats get a bit dusty and a bit muddy and a bit, because just by wearing them. So it's also a great opportunity then to go, I'm also going to either bring them to the dry cleaners or put them in the wash. it's a great opportunity when you do kind of coats to have a look at scarves and maybe now hats and gloves and all of those things together. And it is bulky. I mean, 2 or 3 coats in one bag is like a bag full, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's exactly it, Ingrid. 3 coats, 1 bin bag. That's how much space that's taking up. Whereas regular clothes, you might get 20 or 22, 23 things. I'm being specific. That's a guess. But I would say you'd agree with that, would you?
Yeah.
About 22 to 20 to 25 things probably in a bin bag, only 3 coats. So that just shows you the bulk that's involved in coats. And that is why they are number 3 on our list of things that are going to have a huge impact.
I would like the next one then to be one of my favorite rooms, Leslie, because as you know, I love decluttering kitchens. So I deal a lot with pots and pans. And I think maybe it's because I have a background in hospitality and I did hotel management school. So I do love entertaining and cooking and serving and all of those things, and wine. I like wine as well. Um,
Irrelevant to the pots and pans debate, but thank you for sharing. Thank you.
But yeah, pots and pans are such a bulky category in the kitchen. And it's incredible because over the years, we maybe get given a special pot or we buy a new 1 or 2 pots if we have a set that's become incomplete, or we buy a new set, but we still have some leftover ones from the old set because we really like those pots and pans. And then at one point, it's like, which lid goes with which pan? And I did a kitchen declutter a couple of weeks ago, and it was incredible when there were these beautiful pen drawers, and it was just a matter of just getting it all together. And I was just mixing and matching lids. Which lid goes on which pan? Oh, that doesn't fit. Oh, it goes there. Oh, no, that doesn't fit anywhere. So where do all these random? It's a bit like Tupperware. They appear and nobody knows where they come from.
You'd be very proud of me then, Ingrid, because I have decluttered some pans this week. I think I have shared, haven't I, that I have a brand spanking new kitchen, which is not yet finished in my house, but it is. I did the job of, I had a great time actually reinstating my kitchen. So everything, I'd boxed everything up out of the kitchen. It was ready to start putting things back. And so I did that the other night. And so I've changed from gas to an induction hob. And so I thought that I would need lots of new pans. I hadn't really evaluated. I knew that I would need to go out and buy pans. And I found then there was only actually 3 pans that I've got that don't work. One was a wok because that wasn't stainless steel. So I need to definitely get a new wok. And then there was another 2. But I looked at they were quite large pans, and one was a griddle pan, like a Le Creuset griddle pan, which I do kind of like. Mm-hmm. It's very awkward. I find Le Creuset very heavy to work with as well. And so I looked at it and I thought to myself, definitely need to replace the wok with 2 other large saucepans. One's a griddle pan. Can I live without that? If I've got it, I will use it from time to time. But actually, I've got 2 other frying pans that do the job just as well, that I use more often because they're easier to work with. So there is actually 3 pans going out and only 1 new one coming in to replace it. So you would be very proud of me with my pots and pans declutter, Ingrid.
I mean, of course, because my husband and I both enjoy cooking. We've got both a background in hospitality. So we do use a lot of different pans. But there are people who keep using the same pan over and over and over again because they just love working with that pan. And then there's 3 cupboards full while they're struggling for space. And it's like, let's just now become realistic and go, okay, what are the favorites here? And yes, at some point, a favorite might need replacing, but you might then want to go back to the same brand or the same type of shape because it takes up a lot of space that you can really be, especially people who have smaller kitchens, are struggling for space. You don't need to have 20 different pans if you cook with the 4 or 5 same ones all the time.
The bottom line is I always say to people, how many rings have you got on your burner, on your hob, whatever, on your stove top? I'm trying to think of all the different terminology. And normally it's 5 or 4, 5 possibly, or at the very most 6. And so, but yes, there are things that you use for certain purposes. So you're not going to have, but for basic pans, then you're probably never going to use more than 6 at one time. And then there's going to be 2 or 3 specialist pans. But what you've got to look at there is, I see pan drawers all the time, chocker to the absolute brim with pans. which is fine, but it's the accessibility of those pans that's compromised. Yes, they fit in your drawer, that's fine, but you're having to rifle through every time all those pots and pans when you want to choose one. They do get a little bit more damaged if you're throwing them in as well. So you have to think about that and think about if you've got non-stick surfaces and things like that, they get damaged the more that's going in there. In that kind of kitchen, when we're working with clients, Ingrid, I can guarantee that 20-30% of those pans will go out once we start looking at them. But it's just one of those things that you just never get around to looking at. I mean, I obviously had a specific reason the other day, and I probably would have kept those 3 pans had I not had to be forced then by the swap from a gas to an induction hob to go out and buy new. But I'm like, well, I don't need it. Actually, I'm fine with the ones that I've got. So I'm just going to replace just that one wok. And that'll be nice. Trying to find a nice stainless steel wok will be a nice little thing to do this weekend.
Yeah, definitely. And yes, Leslie, well done for decluttering your pans. I mean, we leading by example here. It's it's fantastic. Okay, all right. I'm really enjoying this list so far. So we've done suitcases, we've done appliance boxes, coats, pots and pans. So what's our next one then, Leslie?
Do you know why we're enjoying it, Ingrid? We're enjoying it because we can see the stuff and the space being created visually. That's why you and I get so excited all the time, because we know what a huge impact these big things have once they start leaving your home. And they're simple decisions. You're not going to do all these in one weekend. Although, to be fair, if you set your mind to, you could do all these in one weekend, couldn't you? We're not saying that you want to be working on 7 different projects in a weekend. But if you want to make a big impact, these would be 7 great quick wins to do. Anyway, yes, Ingrid, what's next on our list of things that are going to have a big impact?
Oh, I'm a bit afraid that people are going to turn off this podcast when I say the next one. They're going to go, oh no, we were with you until now, Ingrid and Leslie, but you're talking about books. I'm not with you on this one anymore. I am a book lover. Don't even go there. But we need to talk about books. We really need to talk about books.
I feel like it's a therapy set. I think it feels like the podcast has turned into a therapy session for all those book lovers out there now.
Yeah. That's why it's a whole course in our membership alone about books, right? Because books and there is so much to say about books. Hence the whole course in our membership. But we really wanted to touch upon books because books can be space invaders. Especially in book lovers' houses, they're everywhere. They're double stacked. They can be humongous. I mean, it's not only little small books. I mean, we have seen books the size of half a coffee table. So they really have to earn their keep. And if you are struggling for space and you can't even get anything else in your living room because you've got 4 bookcases absolutely filled to the brim, I really want to suggest having a look at books. I'm ducking under a desk now, Leslie.
I can see it. I can see her. She's like scared. Willow's scared to even say declutter books to people because we've had the backlash with clients for many years who were like, don't you? I really want you in my house to come in here, but don't even think about asking me to declutter any books. That's what our life looks like, which is hence the reason why we're so scared. But all we're going to say, we're going to leave it there. We can't go into how to declutter books because, as Ingrid says, this is 4 or 5 hours of learning because it's huge in terms of emotional connection. But what we will leave you with is 15 to 20 books is 1 bin bag of stuff going out, and it will create 1 shelf worth of space on a bookcase. So you don't have to make many decisions to make a big impact into that. These things are big and bulky and very easy to create space with.
Yeah, and I think, you know what? I think once books start to live in boxes, in lofts, in garages, in basements, in understairs cupboards, under the bed, why are they in your house? You can't even see them. It's the same with books that are double stacked behind each other. You can't see them. So that basically means you don't even know they're there and that they exist. I love books because people always think, oh, you are a declutterer. You must absolutely hate books. I'm like, no, I love books. I mean, I go to the library all the time. I read books on a Kindle. I myself have 2 bookcases full of books. I have nothing against books. But when they are hidden in your house or there are so many bookcases around your house, that you can't fit other stuff in, and stuff starts to live on the floor, over stuff, on top of cupboards, because you've got no space at all to grab the things you need as well in your life, then I think it's time to have an honest look and go, right, what are the important books here? Do we find 15 coffee table books? Yes. And then they're in a cupboard somewhere, because at the moment there's a couple of little kids walking around with their little grubby hands that as kids always have when they're tiny. And the coffee table books have moved into a cupboard somewhere. They've not seen the light of day in many, many years. They're like, but it's nice to have them on the table. Do we know anybody who goes and visits a friend's house and thinks, I'm going to look at their coffee table book and see what's on there? I don't know anybody like that. Let's keep it real here. I don't know how about you, Leslie, but do you think I would come to your house and go, let me have a look what coffee table book Leslie has in her lounge, and have a browse through while Leslie's making? I'll probably have a look on my phone for 5 minutes, but looking into a coffee table book, I mean, I'm not saying they're not gorgeous, but is it really practical?
Let me give you an example. So you won't be able to look at any coffee table books if you haven't got any. So number one, so you can't leaf through them. Sorry for that information, but no, can't leaf through any coffee table books. I was staging a house yesterday for estate agent's photograph. She is a book lover, the owner of the house. I put 2 coffee table books on the coffee table for estate agent's photographs because they are aspirational.
Yeah.
Let's leave it there. That's the reason why you would have a coffee table book, because people are, oh my God, that's so cool to have these beautiful books.
Yeah.
I agree with you. No one's going to leaf through somebody's books. So books, we dared go there.
Ooh, I know.
Yes. So if you want to make a big impact, tackle those books. Big job. That is not a quick win. It certainly is not a quick win. And the problem is that the ones that are closer to the front, the ones that are out, the ones that are under the bed, those kind of things, those are the ones that you tend to be looking at. So it's the ones that are hiding behind, which are the ones that you need to tackle. Now we're moving on nicely through our list. And this is one of my absolute favorites, because to me, it's a complete win-win situation, which is videos. Old VHS videos that you've had around for donkey's years. It's time to let them go. Now, this is hard because of the landfill situation and the lack of ability to recycle them appropriately. So that is why videos are very, very hard to declutter. But in terms of space, they take up humongous amounts of space, and they stick around for years and years and years. Now, I would imagine that most of you have probably already got rid of your videos, but if you're one of those people that have got the old VHS or Betamax videos hanging around, now's the time.
I still find them, Leslie. I still find them. And every time I think, surely there's no more out there. But surely, I mean, VHS, that was when I was like little. Then we're talking 35 years ago. Surely they must all have now been gone. But then there comes a point when that cupboard opens and goes, oh, and there the VHS tapes come out, and it always gives me the giggles so much. I love it. I'm like, haha, Ingrid, somebody else has fooled you. They're still here. They're still here. It's the same with like cassette tapes. Of course, if it is like a very important party.
And I just tell you, Ingrid is literally crying with laughter at VHS video. I didn't realize it would be quite so emotive to you, Ingrid, when we mentioned it. Thank you for sharing.
I just find it so funny, because every time I think they must have now all gone to video heaven, but they're still around. It's the same with cassette tapes. I mean, our kids are like, they don't even know anymore what they are. They're like, what is this? What is that? I don't even know what it is. I don't even know how it looks like. But if you find in your VHS archive a very important wedding or family party, but put it on a DVD. There are still people who can do this for you. The equipment is still alive.
You don't need to put it on a DVD. You put it onto a USB drive, or put it in the cloud. Let's skip a couple of generations here, so Ingrid. But other people will be laughing at you in 5 years' time, telling people to put things on DVDs. Like, I'm like, Ingrid Johnson, all this stuff have not gone to DVD heaven yet. Let's laugh at her.
Oh gosh. Well, I did put my wedding DVD onto my cloud now, so the kids had a look at that. So, but we still have a DVD. But you know what? The thing is, the technology, especially in the last kind of, well, 20, 25 years has just gone so fast. We can't almost keep up with it ourselves. Even DVDs are kind of like people wondering why we have them, because we're now doing Amazon Prime and we're doing Netflix and we're doing streaming and we've got Sky Cinema and there's not enough hours in the day to watch all the stuff that we want to watch. So do we still want to have those videos and DVDs in our cupboards that we never get around to, you know? So, and they take up lots of space. That's the reason why we're talking about this.
Yes, it is. That's the reason why we're talking about it. And one of the reasons why people struggle with it is because they're a little bit scared that something very important is going to be on one of those VHS tapes. So what I would say to you as a little tip is, if it's a pre-recorded VHS video or Betamax or whatever, the chances are it can go. But if it's on a blank VHS, so it's pre-recorded, be very careful with that and keep those to one side. But 9 times out of 10, if that is a christening or a wedding video or whatever other things that we have, a holiday video that you want to keep, we will undoubtedly have written on that video what it is. It would be very foolish of us to have a wedding video with no acknowledgement that is your wedding video on the actual video. So normally people have annotated it in some way. So don't be too scared. But if you are in doubt, then do double check them and then do the final discard of them. In terms of recycling, there are some in certain areas, there will be VHS recycling schemes, but for the most part, and I hate saying this, they have to go straight to landfill, which is really sad because it's so much plastic, isn't it? But it's still waste if it's sitting in your house. So videos. So we're nearly at the end of our list. I mean, there's many other things in the decluttering world that can have an impact, but these are just 7 biggies that we thought of, aren't they? So what's the last one, Ingrid?
Well, Leslie, our last one for this podcast is shoes. And I'm kind of hiding under my desk once more because people are going to go, oh no, not shoes. But the interesting thing is we have far more shoes than we think, because I even surprised myself recently when I actually counted my shoes and I found out that I had 8 or 9 more pairs than I thought I had.
And why are you counting shoes, if I dare ask? I know you can count shoes, but what? Oh, I know the answer. Go on, tell me.
Yes, because we did the challenge. One of the things was counting on first, and it says count your shoes. So I counted my shoes as well because I wanted to know. And in my head, I thought I probably got about 20 or so. And to my own surprise, I found out I had like 28 or 29 pairs of shoes. It was including wellies and snow boots, but that's beside the point. A shoe is a shoe in the end. So I, very decluttered and organized, but I even underestimated how many shoes I had.
That was count and confess, yeah. It sounds very judgmental, and we don't want it to sound judgmental, do we? But that was our Reset Your Home challenge, that we did back in September. Yeah. Which leads me on, because we've got another challenge coming up, haven't we? And actually, we could do shoes again. We could do another count and confess for shoes, couldn't we?
Yes, we're so looking forward to this, because we're going to do the Reset Your Wardrobe challenge, and it's going to start on Monday. So how fabulous is that? So if you're thinking to yourself, you know what, Ingrid and Leslie got me thinking, I actually probably do need to sort out my coats and I do need to sort out my shoes. Why don't you come and join us for the Reset Your Wardrobe challenge starting on Monday? We're going to do 5 days and we're going to teach you how to declutter and organize your wardrobe.
There are very few people who don't feel overwhelmed with the amount of clothing in the house. That's true, isn't it?
Yeah.
And so wardrobes is a good place to start. So the Reset Your Wardrobe challenge on Monday. Sign up. We'll drop the links in the show notes and everything, won't we?
Yeah, definitely. We had such a fabulous challenge back in September, and we can't wait to do it again. We had, we had hundreds and hundreds of people join into our challenge in the Facebook group. We did a live session every day. We had a bonus. We had a workbook. And that's all going to happen next week as well. So there is still time to sign up. So if you're like, you know what, I do need to sort out my wardrobe. It's a big mess in there. I've got no idea what I have. I keep wearing the same stuff over and over again. I'm so bored with my own clothes. This is a perfect opportunity. Come and join us on Monday. The link to the wardrobe challenge is declutterhub.com/wardrobe-decluttering-challenge. But we'll put it in the show notes to make it easy for everybody.
Yes. So anyway, we digress. We digress with our challenge, but let's go back and talk about shoes again.
Yes. So shoes take up lots and lots of space. And the thing is, shoes are actually really awkward to store as well. So they end up normally stored in 3, 4, 5, 6 different places. There's very few people who have a wardrobe just for shoes. I mean, I once worked with a client who had a cupboard designed into with shelves so she could fit exactly 3 shoe boxes in between the shelving, but that's not a normal situation. Normally, shoes live in the bottom of cupboards, under beds, in the hallway, in understairs cupboards, all over the place. And then when you've got kids growing, and teenagers growing up, they go through shoes like there's no tomorrow. So before you know it, there's lots of shoes hanging about. Nobody knows anymore what size, who they're for, what season they are. So they take up a tremendous amount of space.
Yes. So a little job for the weekend, shoe decluttering. That's quite hard, isn't it? Quite hard emotionally, but again, can create a lot of very, very usable space, can't it? That's our 7.
I really enjoyed it, Leslie. I enjoyed talking about 7 kind of random things, but they're all massive and bulky and great ways to get some space, claw some space back in your house, isn't it? So listeners, are you thinking to yourself, what a great idea. I hadn't even considered doing it this way. And I do need to create some space and get some motivation. Or are you thinking to yourself, this wardrobe challenge sounds amazing. Leslie and Ingrid, I'm going to sign up. We're here for you. We would love it. So thanks so much for listening to this episode. We really hope you've enjoyed it and are inspired to take action, because that's what we're all about, keeping it real and inspiring you to take action. So we appreciate you taking the time to listen today to us. If you've enjoyed this podcast, please share it with other people. Maybe your friends and family would love our show too. And on our show notes page on our website, you can find the sharing buttons. If you want more handy tips and advice from Leslie and I, you can find us in lots of places. We have a fab supportive Facebook group called the Declutter Hub Community, which is a great starting point. And we are also on Instagram and on Facebook. And you can find us as @Declutter Hub, and we'd love to see you there. Take a look at members.declutterhub.com to find out more about our VIP membership. If you don't want to miss our next podcast, subscribe to the Declutter Hub podcast and it will pop into your notifications each Friday. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of the Declutter Hub podcast. Check out declutterhub.com for more inspiration, and don't forget to tune in next week.